She says, "Hi." I thought, "Oh, wow." I said, "Wow, hi." She says, "Hi, Michael." They say Jean died in his sleep, but no one ever asked who sang him to sleep. That sentence came from Al Pacino's husky voice amid the gray chill of a Santa Fe funeral. A morning without music, without farewell words, only the desert wind and the scrape of dry leaves on the ground. The crowd fell silent. No one dared to look at him. Everyone understood Pacino had just broken Hollywood's greatest taboo, touching the secret of the dead. At 85, the last symbol of that golden era, chose not to stay silent any longer. He rose, trembling yet steady, to speak about the old friend who had shared his brightest years on set. Gene Hackman, the man the world believed had left peacefully. But Pacino told a different story, a very different one. He said Hackman hadn't retired, but had been forced to disappear. Behind the quiet smile and the lonely house in Santa Fe, there hid a secret powerful enough to shake the entire film empire. Dirty money running through film projects, contracts signed in silence, and people who passed away just as they were about to tell the truth. It was the kind of story Hollywood wanted buried with him, but Pacino refused. They cleaned up every trace of Zhang, he said, but they forgot one thing I still remember. And now that memory would unlock what no one had dared mention for 20 years. Let's turn back time to finally see the true Hollywood tried to hide for 2 decades. 1. Gann always said, if you dare to stand against Hollywood, they won't need to kill you. They'll just make the world forget you ever existed. That was the line Al Pacino chose to open his story about Gene Hackman, the veteran actor who vanished from the spotlight so suddenly and quietly. To most, his disappearance seemed like a personal choice. To Pacino, it was orchestrated. And the most frightening part was how silently it all happened. According to Pacino, it began around 2001 when Hackman was offered the lead role in a major project produced by Harold Connery, a prominent name in the business, known only for his vast studio connections, but also for questionable private fund money flowing in from overseas. The film was promoted as an epic about compassion and justice. Yet, Hackman quickly sensed something wrong in its financial structure. Years of acting had sharpened his instincts. He could tell when art was just a cover. At a private meeting in Beverly Hills, Connery presented a contract and a massive paycheck. Hackman skimmed a few pages and stopped. He refused. To him, there was no reason to take a role that only polished a financial scheme disguised as cinema. From that moment, a chain of quiet events began, not a scandal, but something heavier than any scandal ever revealed. Within 3 months, Hackman's career froze. Negotiations halted without explanation. Studios turned away. The press stopped mentioning him, not with bad news, but with complete silence. No more scripts, no more invitations, no more calls. The career of one of America's greatest faces on screen fell into a nameless void. Pacino remembered a summer afternoon in 2004 when he met Hackman at the Sunset Tower Hotel in West Hollywood. Though the weather was hot, Hackman wore a scarf around his neck. As he bent to port, Pacino noticed a thin, sharp scar running from his neck to his shoulder. Hackman smiled, saying he had fallen while fixing a ceiling fan. But to Pacino, the cut looked too clean, too deep, and too carefully treated to be an accident. A silent wound just like the silent things surrounding Hackman. Then not long after that meeting, Hackman announced his retirement. He sold his Beverly Hills home and moved to Santa Fe, a small desert town in New Mexico. There he lived almost entirely secluded. No staff, no public contacts, no interviews. Neighbors only knew him as an old bearded man who quietly visited a small bookstore every Friday afternoon. Clara, an employee there, said Hackman always bought the same kind of notebook, a large black moleskin. He paid in cash, never used a card. Once when she jokingly asked if he was writing a detective novel, Hackman paused and said, "Some things shouldn't be printed." After that, he stayed away for nearly 3 months. Pacino claimed Hackman spent most of his time in Santa Fe writing not scripts, not novels, but memoirs. A book never meant to be published while he lived a record of what he had seen, known, and kept silent about for too long. According to Pacino, Hackman said that if he ever died, that book would speak for him. After Hackman's death, police found his personal computer in the study, but the hard drive was gone. His cloud backups, protected by two-factor authentication, had been permanently erased one day after the house was sealed. No signs of outside hacking. The system showed no strange access. It was clear someone had entered the house, taken what they wanted, and left without a trace. Pacino never shared details publicly, but confirmed he had read the first draft of that memoir at the end of 2023. In it, Hackman described shadowy links between finance and filmmaking, naming certain famous stars who allegedly used money to bury scandals, silence victims, and cover organized wrongdoing. The book ended with one short line: "If I tell it all, some people will lose everything." One detail haunted Pacino's Zena. The dog Hackman treated like family was found dead from suffocation inside a closet. Police claimed it had crawled in and got trapped, but Pacino disagreed. Zena never left Gene's side. She was trained to stay near him. If she was locked in, someone locked her there. The only reason to do that, he said, was to keep the dog from barking when a stranger entered. Forensics showed the removed hard drive bore no scratches. Whoever did it knew the device's exact structure. The back door hinges had been unscrewed with precision tools, and scratch marks on the closet matched the estimated time of both Zena's and Hackman's deaths, meaning he was still alive when it all happened. As the details emerged, Hackman's death no longer looked simple. It became a warning in Hollywood: silence can save your life, but truth can become a death sentence. Pacino said Hackman had seen what Hollywood never wanted exposed. He knew who stood behind the dark funds. He knew who used money to hide guilt. He knew too much, so much they couldn't let him write it down. Before they buried him, they buried his manuscript first. When asked if Pacino believed Gene Hackman's death was natural, he looked down at the table and said quietly, "Nothing natural is ever that clean." 2. No death is ordinary when someone dies right after they decide to tell the truth. That line, spoken by Al Pacino during an interview after the funeral, froze the entire room. He stared straight into the camera, unblinking. And Zhang, he was ready to speak. March 2025, Santa Fe, drying cold. A maintenance worker named Lish Chavez arrived to check the electrical system at Gene Hackman's hilltop home on Cerro Gordo. He knocked, no answer. Lights were still on the alarm light, blinking as if manually disabled. Chavez circled to the back, called through a window, still silence. He contacted the neighborhood guard, and then the police were dispatched. When the door opened, a metallic medicinal scent filled the air. The scene inside stunned everyone. Hackman lay on his back in the hallway, hand still clutching a fallen glass of water. His wife Betsy was found in the bathroom. A prescription bottle uncapped on the floor. Water still dripping from the shower. One small dog dead in the closet. 2 others alive but trembling. Their fur soaked as if freshly washed. The preliminary report read, no signs of struggle, no forced entry, valuables intact. Santa Fe police concluded natural causes of old age. The next morning, every major paper ran the same headline: Zhang Hackman passes peacefully beside his wife at 95. But those who truly knew Zhang understood nothing in his life had ever been peaceful. By that afternoon, strange details surfaced. Every clock in the house had stopped at 3:17 a.m., not from a power outage, since lights and heating still worked. The DVR from the security cameras was gone, yet the cables were untouched, neatly unplugged. The back door was slightly ajar, its hinges loosened with a screwdriver. A neighbor, Greta Lewis, testified that around 3 a.m., she heard a car engine, saw headlights sweep across her fence, then fade down the hill. Police omitted this from their official report. 2 days later, a forensic technician added another anomaly. Hackman's fingerprints didn't match the ones on the glass he was holding. The surface had been wiped with a thin oil layer beforehand. His body temperature and estimated time of death didn't align with Betsy's. She had died at least a week earlier. Yet, her body was preserved in a steady environment, as if someone had kept the climate control running. Police called it coincidence, but a private examination commissioned by Pacino said otherwise. The computer keyboard showed oily prints from a third person, neither Jean nor Betsy. Pacino read the report in silence. When a journalist asked what he thought, he replied, "Someone entered that house, and they knew exactly what they were looking for." Friends said that weeks before his death, Hackman complained about strange noises at night and a light outside the window that never went off. He even sent Pacino a voice message voiced trembling Bob, "If anything happens, remember, I never open the door at night." That message was sent at 3:02 a.m., exactly 15 minutes before every clock in the house stopped. From there, everything seemed perfectly staged. A spotless scene intact locks in a dry official report of natural death. Yet among those fragments, something didn't fit. An unseen hand had arranged, wiped, and framed the story in the same way Hollywood always does with its secrets. Pacino Conkle